1995. During that time, and even now, I continue to put on shows from anything from pubs to the O2 Arena in London. I've toured the USA several times, Europe, Scandinavia, Australia, and South America. I think I wanted to start this by trying to get my head around what you thought a tour manager was. And I think the best way to start that is to say that the tour manager is very much part of a team, a touring family. And that consists of obviously the musicians, the crew, which can be anything from techs to front of house, monitors, lights, stage managers, production managers, caterers, merchandisers, a whole bunch of other people. So you're going to interact with musicians, you're going to interact with crew, you're going to interact with agents, sometimes management, sometimes record companies, sometimes if an artist has them, PRs, personal assistants, and depending on the size of the tour and what you're being asked to do, you may be asked to report back to accountants. But there's one group of people that I haven't mentioned there, which won't seem immediately obvious, but is probably the most important most important group to interact with, and that's the families of everybody involved in a tour, because nothing works in a vacuum. And although you have your touring family out with you for a tour, they've all got people at home, they've all got lives, they've all got issues going on that may affect how they feel on any given day. So it's always a good thing to, as much as possible, just casually get to know the families and get to know, what's going on in their private lives as much as you can, because you will come up against problems that you'll have to solve that are not directly related to the tour, and 9 times out of 10 they will be family related. I was going to throw this. I don't know whether we can. Is everyone able to answer? Because I was going to throw this one out next and ask what everyone's idea of what a average tour manager, and there is no such thing as an average tour manager, would be responsible for.
If you want to respond to that, just click on the raise hand and I'll no action. Oh, Spencer. Spencer?
Yeah, I thought I might as well just jump in. Yeah, I'm guessing from getting things, some of it getting things from A to B, logistics, equipment wise, and keeping an eye on everything that's going on. Really, all those people you've mentioned there, just getting that oversight, really, umbrella function.
Yes, you've pretty much, by calling it an umbrella function, you pretty much hit the nail on the head. Tour managers' duties are going to change from day to day. One of the most important things I think about being a tour manager is to expect the unexpected. And you're never in a position where you can turn around and say, well, actually, that's not down to me. That's somebody else should be sorting it out. Because if it needs to be sorted on the day, it is down to you to sort it. Now, that may well be that you go back to a member of the crew or management if you need answer from them. But ultimately, just by the very title, you're there to manage the tour, to make sure that everything goes as smoothly as possible. And you wear many hats. I mean, the first thing you do as a tour manager, normally you're given the bare bones of the tour, i.e. venues. You should be given a promoter's contact name. You'll be given band contact so you can interact with them. So your first duty on receiving that information is to do what we call advancing the shows, which is to get hold of the promoter who is running the show, and basically run through a bunch of questions that will enable you to be ahead of the game when you turn up on the particular day. So that can be anything from If it's a venue you don't know, finding out what the capacity is, finding out if there's age limits that you'll have to make sure everybody adheres to, finding out load-in times, finding out things like the parking situation. If you're driving a sleeper bus or even a big van, it may well be that a venue's in a shopping precinct or something like that. So it's basically getting down with the promoter, getting everything done, and it might sound stupid, but actually making sure that the information you've got is information that works on the day. In other words, if an agent or a manager has said to you, well, we're doing XYZ venue in Huddersfield, and parking wise it's fine, and these things are going to happen. You need to check that that's actually the case, because if you turn up on the day and you find, for argument's sake, you've got to go into a height restricted car park and you can't get your van in there, that can impact quite a lot, just in terms of being able to get your equipment into the venue or not. A big difference between being able to rock up to the venue doors and having to park 200 or 300 yards away when it's pouring down with rain and you're on double yellow lines and you've got traffic wardens chasing you. So advancing the shows is important. It also allows you to open a relationship with the promoter or the gig rep or whoever's running the show. So straight away, you have that relationship up and running. You're not going into the place cold. And it can help sometimes if there are problems that are going to be flagged. You've got time to sit down and sort them out on your own, rather than being put in a pressure cooker situation when you turn up on the day and you've got people are asking you 101 different questions, and you also find that you've turned up at 5 o'clock and that nobody's going to be at the venue till 6. Just simple stuff. Other stuff you may be asked to do, depending on the size of the tour, booking accommodation. One of the things I would suggest, if you're going to take that role on, there are various websites now that offer free rooms or discounted rooms depending on the number that you book. And if you're going to be tour managing over a number of weeks, maybe even over a number of different tours, it's worth setting yourself up with an account. They're free, and it basically means, for argument's sake, for every 10 rooms you book, you get a free room. So you can be saving the tour money, or if it's a budget tour and you're in a situation where band members have to share rooms, you can become the hero. You can give them single rooms on a particular day because you saved up free rooms. You can also look at it from a personal point of view, as some of my colleagues do, and just keep those rooms or points to yourself. I've got a friend who has 3 very nice holidays a year, takes his wife and family away just on the free rooms that he's accumulated. You may well be asked to arrange transportation. Again, it sounds like it's a very easy thing to do with all the hire companies, but if you take the period we're in now, if you were to get on the phone today to try and source transportation for the next 2 or 3 months, you'd find that it was all gone. It's the festival season, it's all booked. So again, it's good building up contacts with the various transportation companies that are local to you, and giving them as much notice as you possibly can on to when you need to book. You may be asked to arrange the crew. It may be that the band is new to touring, and you may be asked to source technicians, lighting techs, front of house, monitor engineers. And again, it all comes back to relationships. You build up a network of people that you can rely on. And those people will generally be the people that will make your job easier. As you get into this, you become a family, and the times that you fall down and make mistakes, and you will, those people will be there to cover your back, and they'll expect you to do the same when things go wrong for them. You'll almost certainly be asked to plot the logistics. So you sit down, get Google Maps or something similar, and you work out that starting the tour in Huddersfield and the first night's in Birmingham. So you work out how long it's going to take you to get down there. Get yourself an app that calculates costs so you can work out roughly how much it's going to cost you in petrol or diesel, and always allow a little bit extra. One of the things that I learned very early on is if you tell someone it's going to take 3 hours and it takes 3.5 hours for a journey, they're going to jump all over you. If you tell someone it's going to take 4 hours and you turn up in 3 hours, they'll love you. You're suddenly a hero. So always make it sound a little bit worse than it is. You'll be asked to generate schedules. Nowadays, a lot of these you can do online and send to people's mobile phones. In the older days, you would have to generate paper schedules, put them into a tour book, and always make people aware that these are a rough blueprint for the day or a wish list, because they're never going to follow completely as you've got them, and you should never be too over concerned as to whether they will or not. So long as you build in time and so long as you respect things like venue opening hours and venue curfews, everything else in between will shift. You will get stuck in traffic. You will turn up at venues and find that the people that are supposed to be helping you load in aren't there. So it's just to give people a rough idea of what time you want them to be ready to pick them up for the hotel, etc., etc. You may be asked to do the settling, the financial thing on the night. More and more so nowadays, that's done directly with either an agent or management company, and it's done via bank transfer. But there are still especially the smaller gigs, where it's up to you to collect the money. It may be that if the artist you're touring with is on a guarantee plus a percentage of the door, that you'll be expected to calculate that. Again, you can find various templates that will help you through stuff like that. Don't be afraid to ask an agent or a manager if you're unsure. The worst thing in the world is to walk away and find out afterwards that you've left a few £100 sitting there that was yours. So always check, just work out your own figures, and just, even as a matter of courtesy, send it to the agent at the end of the evening and say, I've worked out I'm supposed to be picking up £1,000. What do you make it? You may be asked to report back on merch sales on a particular evening. More and more so now, tours are relying on merchandise sales to make themselves financially viable. And it's, if you're on a tour where merch is selling particularly well, management agencies and the actual musicians themselves have got a very vested interest to make sure they don't run dry on t-shirts or CDs. So that can be something as well, that if you don't have a dedicated merchandiser, forms part of part of your remit. Silly things. Always make sure that you're aware going into a tour. Just ask directly whether any member of the crew has any medical conditions you need to be aware of, because you can suddenly be in the middle of a 10-hour journey, 5 hours from nowhere, and find out that you've got a diabetic with you that has no backup sources of sugar. So if you can always make sure you're carrying an extra chocolate bar, you've got a bottle of Lucozade, something like that. If you know that one of the touring party has a condition where it means they've got to check in with a doctor regularly, take that into consideration. Don't take it as read that they will take care of it themselves. Understanding mental health, I think more and more, it used to be a taboo subject, and now it's something that virtually every tour, and by the very nature of what we do, a lot of people you'll find gravitate towards the touring life are people that have various issues. You need to be able to manage those. You need to be aware that on any given day, somebody may be having a bad day that will impact on other people for reasons that are not their fault, and you need to be able to keep a calm head and deal with those as need to be dealt with. This was the point, I think, Sarah, where we were going to take some questions before we moved on. I can't hear you at all there.
Because I'm on mute. I muted myself because I didn't want to disturb you while you were talking. Sorry about that. So yeah, has anyone got any questions at this point? Adrian.
Hi, Adrian.
Yeah, hi Mick. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Yeah, great stuff. I just wondered, sort of typically, you know, when you're a tour manager, at what point do you start to engage with the musician? You know, at what stage? You know, is it obviously it's before the tour, but you know, in terms of how much do you get involved in the planning of that, or in the understanding of essentially where the musician is looking to play, or is that more the promoter side of it?
Yeah, that would be, generally speaking, and I mean, you know, the whole thing with tour management is that on a first tour with an artist that you haven't met before, it's like anything else, like going into any other new job. You're all feeling each other out. You don't really know each other. If you're lucky enough to, you know, form long relationships with musicians, if they like you, you will get the shout back. You'll be asked to be the permanent tour manager, and it does become a second family. At that point, you'll almost certainly have direct contact with them. You'll have email addresses and phone numbers, and you'll be talking to them as friends. At the start, it's really driven by management or agents. You know, they might want you to have contact. Sometimes they don't want you to have direct contact. So it's really down to them as to how that goes, and it's down to the musicians themselves as to how much they want to get involved in advancing a tour. The stuff that you do need to know, I mean, the staff, you obviously need to have contact information for everybody on the party, just because, you know, you might be given an address to pick somebody up from, get there and they're not there, so you can sit there like a lemon for an hour not knowing where they are, or you just get on the phone and sometimes it'll be something's come up, or they're running late, or they've forgotten that you were coming, and at least you know. And then again, you can work around that. You can, if there's somebody else local, you can go and pick them up and come back, or you know, you know, I've had a couple of tours where I've turned up and musicians have decided they're not doing the tour, and that's always an interesting situation to find. You have to then obviously get hold of management or the other musicians, and sometimes it's a case of, oh, well, we thought this was happening, you know, we've got somebody on standby, and sometimes the whole tour falls down before it even starts. But yeah, let that be driven by other people. I mean, what I would always do when you're given a contact for a musician, send an email out first, and that will give you a good feeling as to how much they want to interact. If they come back and say, oh yeah, this will be easier over the phone, let's pick that up. They might just, hey, good to see you, you know, we're meeting up in a month's time or 2 months' time, see you then. And then you know that you're not really going to have any interaction with them, and you probably don't need to. As regards to, I think another bit of where you were coming from is, you know, how much do you get involved with booking a tour? Roles cross over, so generally speaking, that's an agent's job. If it's something that, as I say, you've been involved with a particular artist for a few tours, I think they would expect you to chip in and, you know, well, Sheffield was particularly good last time, can we make sure that's on the tour? Or, you know, the band are a bit embarrassed, they really don't want to say, but they don't want to go to Leeds this time round. And, you know, and that you put your input in, and then it's up to, you know, agents, management as to where you actually go. And a lot of the times what we do, I'm also an agent, and I'm also a manager, and a lot of the times you will see on social media, you know, as soon as tour dates go up, various Facebook friends or whatever will come back and say, oh, what blind man booked the tour? You know, you're starting in Edinburgh, you're going down to London, the next day you're going back up to Glasgow. You need to be aware that a lot of what goes on now is money driven. So there'll be certain venues you can only play on certain nights. They'll only book the show for certain nights. There'll be certain venues that will pay you twice what you're getting paid in another venue. And more so now, it's that dictates a routing, that dictates what you're doing. And it can obviously be a cause of dismay for the musicians that are having to travel up and down the motorway. But there's generally a reason for it, and again, you have to manage their disappointment and as much as possible, unless it's something that really isn't possible or isn't safe. If you're asked to do something like that, that's worth flagging with the manager or flagging with the agent. A thing that's becoming more and more prevalent nowadays, there are a lot of small companies that are formatting splitter buses, and even before you put the passengers or any amount of equipment in, they're already overweight. You need to be aware that is your responsibility. If you get pulled over by the police, the driver will get a fine and get tickets, but you will be stopped. You won't be allowed to travel any further. They'll make you unload, and you'll have to source alternative transportation before they let you go. So if once you get some experience under your belt, and if you know that what you're being asked to carry is dangerous or just impractical, that's always worth flagging as well. And at the end of the day, I've had drivers refuse to do tours when I phone them up and I've said we're running close to the weight limit on this. It might be a driver that's already sitting on 6 points or 9 points on their license, and they're not going to take the risk doing it. So you do get involved beforehand on that side of things. But I think the overall mantra for any tour manager, you really, more than anything else, are there to deal with the unexpected, the stuff that's going to fall out the sky. When a tour's running smoothly, it can be said that you don't actually need to be there. I'd like to think that the reason the tour is running smoothly is down to you. It's because you are there and you've taken care of the problems before they arise. But certainly, it is the unexpected that you're there to deal with.
Spencer.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask. It's really interesting, is that? But how do you think the tour manager role can be scaled down? So, for instance, if you're an artist trying to sort out your own tour and your own gigs, so rather than like the ad hoc gigs that you're trying to sort out week after week, and that repetitive aspect, how do you go about that? I guess that advance planning, so you know where you are for the next 6 months, but as a an independent artist / your own tour manager.
Yeah, I mean, are you saying the artist would in effect tour manage themselves?
Yeah. On a. I mean, we're talking about lower scale stuff here. Not from my perspective, so it's how do you? Yeah, go on. Sorry, mate.
Yeah, to be honest, it's how most of us started. You start with a group of friends. You might even be a musician yourself, and you suddenly find out that they're actually better than you're the least talented musician. So you gravitate to another skill, and tour management, booking shows is one of them. Yeah, I mean, if you're an artist and you're self-booking and self-tour managing, it's really no different. I mean, somebody's in charge of making it run. And it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody outside of the band. I mean, a lot of very successful bands still have people that will do the logistics themselves or book hotels themselves because they enjoy it, or because they want to save money, or to be honest, I mean, some of them are much better at it than the actual tour managers they'd be employing. So as to knowing in advance where you're going to be in 6 months' time, that's really that's really goes back to whoever's put the shows in. That's where it all stems from. So most tours now, even small tours, it's debatable as to whether you're being sensible to put anything on sale that hasn't got 6 months to sell. So you should know there. The other side of that particular coin, and it's happening more and more, and if you're on social media, you'll have seen the pleas to buy tickets in advance because various dates aren't selling, and tours are getting cancelled. I mean, only today I spoke to another agent. We were talking about stuff, and two reasonably well-established artists have just lost, both of them have just lost a week's work in Scotland, purely on the back of the Euros, that now the fixtures are out. Ticket sales have just dried up, and there weren't enough advance ticket sales to make it work. So yeah, I mean, if you're an indie artist and if you're tour managing yourself, you're basically, you're going to be booking your own shows, or you've got maybe a partner that's booking them or whatever. So you will know 6 months in advance where you're going to be, but it's you taking responsibility for that, if you like.
So actually, maybe a way to support in terms of musicians as a community who might be in similar positions. You could actually collaborate to. Well, I'm sort of thinking almost a few of you could get together and say, well, there's these places that all like this sort of music. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
Funnily, the lady that introduced me to Sarah and your university, she's just put a tour together where it's literally, she's met people when she's done various dates. Say, for argument's sake, she'll phone up. She's got a good relationship with the parish in Huddersfield, and she'll put somebody on. She'll support them coming up to Huddersfield, and in return, they'll support her going down to Birmingham. So there's a lot of that. One of the things I was going to mention, it's later on, was sort of resources. Social media groups, especially dedicated social media groups now, are brilliant. There are all sorts of variations, and you can get on, for argument's sake, small musician networks, singer-songwriter networks. There are tour manager networks, and I was going to say they're absolutely brilliant because these are all people that are going through what you're going through, and they're all going to face the problems that you might face on a particular day on another day. In terms of tour management, I mean, we had a thing 2 weeks ago where we booked a splitter bus months in advance and got the phone call the night before we were due to pick it up to say that the band that currently had it had written it off. So we'd lost our splitter. We didn't have anywhere at all that we could get conventionally, and I just put a thing out on the tour manager WhatsApp group, and within 10 minutes I had 4 splitters, people that I'd never met, people that I didn't know, companies I'd never have thought of approaching. And it's the same networking. If you're networking for small gigs, there are lots of people out there that you can collaborate with. There are lots of agencies that specialize in taking on new artists, and they have a network of small venues, pubs, etc., that they can put you into, knowing that it's your first time out or your second time out, and that you're looking to grow things. So yeah, my advice on that would be check out the groups, talk to other musicians. They'll, some of them will already be on there, and they'll hook you up with those.
Well, they'll be meeting Piper on the 10th of July because
Piper's brilliant. I have to say,
she's a star.
She's an absolute star, and the lady that Piper tours with, how I know Piper, is a lady called Carol Hodge, who lives in Huddersfield, and we have a standing joke that anything that involves Carol automatically becomes better. And Carol, if you can get her in to Sarah to give a talk, she's an absolute shining example of a one-woman. She does everything herself. She presses her own records, makes her own T-shirts, books her own shows, and she works all year round. She makes it work, and she's absolutely brilliant. She's a real shining example of how you can do it.
Right. Okay. All right, if there aren't any more questions and I can't see any more hands, I'll let Mick carry on to his next phase of his talk.
Okay, so the next phase that I've got would be when you're offered a tour, questions that you should ask. Obviously, there's the financial thing. What are you going to get paid? That can be quite woolly. It can be, oh well, you know, if we do well, you'll get this, and to be honest, we've all got to start somewhere. And if that's what it is, and you're looking to gain experience, that's fine. You will find on some of the social media groups that I mentioned, people can be quite sniffy. You've got some people that have been doing it a long time who will automatically retort with, oh, you know, I won't get out of bed unless I'm getting paid X amount, and nobody else should do it either because it's driving the price down. In reality, it's like any other industry. You're going to get paid less when you start, unless you're extremely lucky, but you are gaining experience. So in a way, you know, it's you live and learn. You're on a tour, and you know the next time that you come out, you're slightly better than you were on the first tour, and you can adjust your price accordingly. But questions you should ask when you're offered a tour: ask the agent or ask the manager to give you a brief outline of what they see your duties being. You can't then stick to that. You can't ever, as a tour manager, I don't think, be someone that turns around and says, "Oh, well, I wasn't told about that when we started, so I won't do it," because you will be asked to do, you know, 100 things on a tour that nobody could perceive happening. But you know, it's about what's fair and what's right. I mean, obviously, if they're saying to you, we're going to pay you a basic wage, and these are the 10 things I want you to do, and then you find that you're doing 40 different things consistently, that, you know, that there's another conversation to be had. So always try and get a brief outline of what they're telling you the tour entails. A lot of tour managers are also, you know, front of house guys. You may be asked to drive. A lot of tour managers, it's part of the deal that you have to drive. It's not necessary. It can be that, you know, they have a driver, but you have to bear in mind the more people that are on the tour, the less money there is to go around. So if you can multitask, if you are someone that can put on your CV, you know, tour manager happy to drive, or even split driving, or tour manager with, you know, basic guitar teching experience or something, it's something that can get you more work. Find out in advance the number of the touring party. So, you know, are you being asked to tour in a car with a singer-songwriter or a folk duo, or are you being asked to cram a 20-piece orchestra into a splitter that holds 9 people? Sounds stupid, but you know, if you turn up and you can't fit them all in, you're in trouble to start off with. Try and get an idea of the amount of gear and luggage that you're going to be carrying, because, as I say, more and more so now, you will be pulled over, you will be fined if the vehicle's overweight, and it can mean the difference between missing a show and, by missing the show, not getting paid on something that you can manage in advance. And why I mention luggage as well as gear, I mean, I've got a particular guitarist I work with who carries a minimal amount of gear but has OCD and turns up with 9 suitcases for himself for any one tour. So straight away, the amount of gear he's carrying becomes irrelevant, but the 9 suitcases become a problem that you have to manage. Try and find out the rooming list requirements and get some sort of written agreement on that, because you'll be told to go and book twin rooms or triple rooms on some tour, and when you get to the hotel, you'll find that the band haven't been told that they're sharing rooms, and that can cause problems in itself. So always try and make sure that you've got something that you can refer to. And if that happens, say, well, look, this is the message I got from your manager or your artist. That then becomes their problem. If there's going to be fallout from that, you know, we did a gig 6 months ago at a club in Edinburgh. Some venues now have what they call band rooms. So instead of having the expense of a hotel, you can choose to stay in a sort of dormitory situation. Now, you know, there are pros and cons to that, but a lot of artists will not do it. It's just something they've gone past the point where they're going to share rooms or they're going to go into a dormitory. And we had 2 bands on the tour, and when I was sending the day sheets out, I'd been told by one manager that they were quite happy. In actual fact, they actually wanted to stay in this dormitory, and the other band were categorically not going to. So when the day sheet went out, it had both lots of information on, and it said band A staying at a hotel, band B staying in a dormitory, and band B called a meeting, got me down and said, well, why are we staying in a dormitory when they're staying at a hotel? And I said, because your manager said so, you need to phone him, you need to have that conversation. Suddenly I got the phone call back from the manager, sorry, that was an error, book them into a hotel. If you don't ask, it can cause problems. If you have the information in advance, it's another problem you don't have to deal with. I've covered the existing health requirements, but it goes a bit further than that. I'm trying to think of the last tour I did where I wasn't working with somebody that either had ongoing alcohol or drug dependency or was a recovering addict of some sort. So, be aware of that. Be aware that that forms part of their day, and by doing so, forms part of your day. Be aware that a lot of people need to attend AA meetings, and they won't necessarily want to make that public. But it's relatively easy if you're going into Manchester on a Wednesday night to find out where the AA meetings are. And should you be asked, you can actually discreetly tell people. Again, it's making your life easier by making their life easier. Questions I always ask when I'm advancing shows. I've mentioned parking. That everything stems from that. If you can't park and you can't get your gear out, you're not going to play a show. So that's very important. And that'll range from venues with their own dedicated parking, which is secure, to venues in the middle of shopping precincts where you've got to park the van up and arrange to carry gear, for some distance, which sounds like it's okay. It's if it's what you've got to do, it's what you've got to do. But to be aware of it, making the band aware of it, because if you're approaching a venue and you suddenly find they've all arranged to go down to the pub and meet up with friends, and you've got a 6-piece band and you're expected to load it all in by yourself. I mean, number one, it's not practical, because you need to have someone on the lookout for traffic wardens. You shouldn't really be leaving the van unattended. Number two, there's certain items of equipment which physically would be difficult to manage over any sort of distance. So find out about the parking, find out about the loading details. Again, forewarn your touring party. If you know that you're at a venue, the parish in Huddersfield would be a great example. It's a great venue. There's a load of stairs involved. Make everybody aware of that. If there's a venue with a flat load in, make them aware of that. It's great. It's going to be a nice, easy one. We can roll stuff in. You can go and have a drink in 10 minutes time. We've got everything on. If you're going to need their help, because you've got to manage stairs or something like that, make them aware. They can't bitch at you when they turn up. Green room facilities, hospitality. Some venues have it, some venues don't. Again, it's good to be aware, because some musicians will opt to stay at a hotel and come down later on if they know they've got to sit in the middle of a crowd. A lot of musicians, a lot of artists want to mentally prepare themselves for a show. And if you're sticking them in with a bunch of fans who want to ask them 20 questions and buy them drinks before they go on, sometimes it's not conducive to a good time. So always ask what the green room facilities are. Show timings, because you'll have a situation sometimes where you're told it's an 11 o'clock curfew, and there are 2 sorts of curfew, well, 3 sorts of curfew really. There's what they call a soft curfew, which is we would prefer you to be off at 11 o'clock because buses stop running at 10 past 11 and people won't get home. So you can run over. If the band's having a particularly good time or running late, you can run over 5 minutes. There's the embarrassing curfew, which is the hard curfew, which literally means somebody in the building will pull the power on the band while they're on stage. That will be your fault if it happens. If you've made the band aware that it's an 11 o'clock curfew, and in cases like that, you always make them aware that it's a 10:55 curfew, never 11, because that gives them then 5 minutes where if they are spilling over, you can do that. But, you know, I've seen fistfights break out where somebody has pulled the power on somebody, band members claim they haven't known, and it's embarrassing for them. They're, you know, 9 times out of 10, the last number of the night will be the big number, and to have that suddenly pulled out from underneath them is embarrassing for them. You need to know what time people are getting to the venue as well, because if you're working with a venue sound engineer and he doesn't get there till 5 o'clock, it's pointless you getting there hours in advance, because once you've loaded in and set up, there's nothing you can do. So work around each other, but make sure you've got the show timings in advance. The riders, the hospitality riders, most bands will now, you know, put something together which is their wish list to have a good night. And as you get more and more proficient and sell more tickets, the promoters are more likely to give you what you're asking for, because it's reflected in ticket sales. But if they're not, or they have certain policies and certain venues, for argument's sake now, have venues that they won't under any circumstances provide spirits. So be aware of it. And if it's something that is particularly important to your band, you can generally find a way around it. You know, if a bottle of spirits is £20, you can negotiate with £20 worth of stuff somewhere down the rider, because your singer needs a bottle of scotch, you know. So but be aware and make the band aware. There are some venues that if they feed you, believe it or not, in this day and age, still don't have vegetarian options or vegan options. Be aware of that, because you can have a situation where you've been traveling all day, your drummer's vegan, he gets there, the rest of the band are fed, and there's nothing for him. So if you know that, you can stop on the way and make sure you've got something for him, or just take care of that, you know. The in-house staff always find out, you know, what the venue is supplying. So it may well be that you're traveling with your own sound engineer, but most venues, even if you are, they'll have their own people, and they'll want to what's called babysit. So they've got a guy who's basically going to make sure that your sound guy isn't going to wreck his equipment. See what you get. You know, some venues will provide a guy who does everything. He'll do sound, he'll do lights, he'll do monitors. Some of them won't have monitor engineers. It may be that your band need a monitor engineer. You then need to go back to management and, you know, we've discovered that XYZ venue doesn't have a monitor engineer. It's then up to the manager to talk to the band. If it's absolutely imperative that they have one, it's up to him to give you the funds to go and source a monitor engineer, or, you know, go back to the band and explain that funds simply don't allow for it. And again, they're forewarned going into it. It's not a nasty shock on the day. I had a friend, it's very rare now, but I had a friend who 6 months ago was touring with a name Australian act who turned up at a venue, and everything they'd been told spec-wise wasn't there. And he made the decision, generally speaking, you'll try and find a workaround and make that work. And he made the decision that it compromised the band's reputation and it compromised their sound. And he pulled the show. It was a sold out show, and he would not allow the show to continue. You know, doesn't happen very often, but sometimes you have to do that to protect your artist's reputation. Check the tech specs. Make sure that just because an agent's booked a venue, it doesn't mean it's going to have the technical equipment that your band needs to be able to perform to the best of their ability. And if they can't, again, it's their reputation that suffers. So, you know, if you know this in advance, you can have the conversation with either the venue or management about making sure that somebody makes sure that you've got the tech specs that you need. I mentioned resources earlier, and I mentioned the social media groups. Just networking yourself is a great source of building up your contacts. Just each venue you go into, if you particularly like the sound engineer or you particularly like the monitor guy, take the details. You've got them in your book. The next time you're in a particular city and maybe you don't carry your own, you can phone them up and, are you free tonight? Or sorry, that's wrong. Yeah, you can phone them up, a month or so in advance and say, I'm coming in July. Are you free for the night? Would you like to come down? Most people are freelancers, so it's money in their pocket, and they will. And you'll also find it's reciprocal. They will then, a tour needs a tour manager. It'll be XYZ who came in the other day, seemed like a really decent guy. Why don't you give him a ring? There are a lot of tour management apps now as well. Most of them you have to pay for, but they can save you a lot of time. They can also they offer a bunch of facilities that once you get your head around using them, make your day-to-day running easier. I use an app called Master Tour, and there are plenty of others, but I'm just going to run through basically what Master Tour does for you as a tour manager. Effectively, somebody that's running Master Tour, be it yourself or being it the management company or an agent, will pay a subscription. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be you, it can be somebody else. Once that subscription is set up, they can then make free accounts available to everybody on the tour. So your musicians, techs, yourself. As tour manager, you can plot your whole day on it, in advance. You can put your schedule together. Master Tour in particular, one of the reasons I like it, if you click on a venue that's new to you, if another tour manager has been there before, it's then logged on their system. So you're going into the Parish Huddersfield, you've never been there before, you load it into your search bar, it comes up, and it will give you a whole lot of both information to do with the venue itself. Most of the stuff that I've covered earlier on, it will give you the capacity, it will give you contact numbers for the venue, it will give you loading details, parking details. All of the stuff that you were going to have to phone and get in advance will be there because somebody's been there a few weeks before. It also gives you the facility to leave public notes, which are will only be visible to people on Master Tour. So, for argument's sake, promoter will tell you there's a lift, there is, but it doesn't work, and you've got 5 flights of stairs. Good to know, and you can leave yourself private notes so that should you go back to the venue in a year's time or something, when you log into it, what isn't visible to anybody else but will come up to you, beware, the lights that we were promised were only half there. Just leave yourself private notes. It's great as you get more and more into tour management because it saves every tour you've done, it archives them. So you can go back and check on something at a venue that you might not have been to for a few years. It also gives you triggers. When you book a hotel, it will come up and tell you that you were last there with a certain artist. And then you can think, if you don't remember, it's like, oh, that was good or that wasn't. And again, you can leave yourself notes. You can book your hotels. Sorry, not book your hotels. You can log your hotel details on there. And again, it's a database. So you start typing Travelodge or Radisson, whatever, Huddersfield, and it will come up with the options. You click on that, it will load the details that other people have left for you. So stuff that your musicians or other touring members are reasonably going to ask you. Does it have Wi-Fi? We've been on the road for a week. I need to do some laundry. Does it have laundry facilities? What time is check-in? What time's check-out? Is there a breakfast? Is it included? And all of that will pop up once you've been there the first time, or somebody else has put the information in. That's all there for you. It's got a live travel section. So whereas Google can sometimes be on the kind side. You put in a Huddersfield to Glasgow and it comes up with 3 hours, but actually local knowledge will tell you that on a Thursday night or a Friday night it's going to take you 4.5 hours because of rush hour traffic. It's linked to a system that takes that into account for you. It has a tracking system for plane and train and ferry services. So if you know you've got to get to Leeds International to pick somebody up and they're coming in on a 9 o'clock flight, it will send you a message to say the flight's been delayed till 9:30, or the flight landed half an hour early. It's great on that sort of side. It's invaluable because you're not sitting in a pay car park for a half an hour where you don't need to be there. It generates various reports for you. So I'm just going to go through what it actually, the various reports that you can generate just by inputting the information. It will do a whole tour book for you. So if you're doing 28 dates and you put all your information for the 28 dates in, click a button, and it will create either an electronic tour book, which you then share to anybody that's in your touring party via their mobile phone, or you can print out as paper tour book, paper day sheets. It has a number of preset templates, so you can have on the information that you particularly want to have. You can have hotel details, venue details, the schedule for the day. There's a very nice little calendar icon at the bottom that actually tells everybody what they're doing for the next 7 days. It will just say Monday, Huddersfield Parish, Tuesday day off, bop along there. And there are various combinations of that, including one that allows you to customize notes. So anything that you feel is pertinent on the day, and it could be details about a hotel, details about a venue, details about travel, you can jot in yourself. Guest list, which is something that I haven't touched on. You're responsible for guest list, you're responsible for managing it, you're responsible for making sure that if your guitarist has put his wife on the guest list, she gets in, which again sounds stupid, but it's we all have busy days, we all forget things. This, you can actually log the guests as you go. You can also, if you want to, either let the band and crew add their own guests subject to your approval. They all then come to you, they're all logged on the system as pending, and you have the that's been approved. Say for argument's sake, you've got a show and the promoter has allocated you 20 guests, but when you look at the list that people have sent you, there's 40 people on there. You may have to phone the promoter and negotiate to get 40 people in. It may not be possible. There may be a fire limit, might be a sold out show, and you can only get 20 people in. So you go back to the band, you go back to management, and you do a pruning exercise, but in advance because it's all there for you. And you can print those lists off electronically, send them in advance to the venues, so they've got their it prints off set lists for you. You can load set lists, and you have a system where you can load, for argument's sake, 100 songs if a band is particularly prolific, but they're only going to play 20 songs in any one evening. You just click on the songs and you can make your own set list each night. Saves you a wealth of time in having to handwrite stuff out or print stuff out because it's all just logged on the system. When you get to the hotel, it generates a rooming list for you. So you literally just input it onto your system. Guitarist is in room 1, drummer's in room 2, hit a button, and all that information automatically goes to your touring party. The great thing about this over a paper version is because everybody's got mobile phones now, and people in the old days of tour books, people would lose them. They were bulky. They would use them to write on, etc., etc. This is always with you. So if you've got a guitarist who's met up with an old friend who he didn't know was coming to a show and he's gone out drinking and he can't remember what the schedule is tomorrow, what time he's got to get back, the address of the hotel, what time breakfast is. He's literally got to click a button on his phone, and all of this information is there for him. It generates various reports. There's an Excel spreadsheet on there that has pre-input expenses, that most of the expenses you're going to come across. So you can keep, instead of having to keep scraps of paper, you can, for argument's sake, put down that on Wednesday you spent £100 on fuel, you had to feed the band, so you stopped, and it's bang, bang, bang. And every day, if required, you can send that to management, to agent, or just for your own bookkeeping. You've got it there. So when somebody says to you at the end of the day, at the end of a tour, well, we were expecting to end up at the end of the tour with £10,000, you can turn around and say, well, we've got 9,600 because, you know, the guitarist needed £100 for strings. It's all saved there for you. It's also started doing a thing now where it has various tie-ins with hotel chains, music shops, etc., etc. So that can be a good thing. You can save yourself money on those. Although at the moment, because it's an American company, it's predominantly in America, but it is starting to branch out into Europe and the UK as well. So yeah, you click a button and it will come up with, around you there's 2 guitar shops, guitarist has broken the string, so you can go and buy new strings. You don't have to look around for it. It's all there for you. Like I say, it's something that will save you a lot of time, a lot of effort, and certainly if you're doing repeat tours, you know, it once you put the information in, if if the first tour is 10 venues, and the second tour turns out to be 15 venues, 10 of those venues will all be pre-filled when you tap on a button the next time around. I mentioned before, but I'll mention again, also anything where you can save money. Sign up for, if you're responsible for doing hospitality on any shows, make sure you've got a Co-op card and a Tesco's card and a Sainsbury's card, because each time you use it, you're getting points, which you can either choose to, use to save the band money at the end of it, or like I say, save up as your particular Christmas box. It's something that you're doing this, you're earning the points. The hotel apps, there's booking.com, there's hotels.com. Not only do you get the free rooms once you start using this, and you don't have to book many rooms. I think the first free room you get is when you booked your first 10 rooms. But once you've booked 20 or 30 rooms, they award you a gold status, which means you have a 24/7 dedicated hotline. And believe me, the number of times you will turn up to a hotel or B&B to find that you'll see a sign that says closed. They've gone away. You're stuck. You've got 6 people that want to get into their rooms. You phone hotels.com and your problem becomes their problem. And it's then, because you book through them, it's then down to them to find you a hotel in the area, and you just sit and wait while they do that. And I've had 3 this year where we've literally turned up and either there's been a problem, we've got there, and the hotel's got burst pipes and it's uninhabitable. We did a run across Europe earlier in the year where we were told the hotel was 24/7, and it was, but when we got there, there was no one manning the 24/7 service. The guy had gone to sleep, and we needed to get somebody to get him out of bed. And we turned up at a hotel in Germany where, as I say, they'd just gone away. They'd shut the hotel and gone away. And within half an hour, they booked us, hotels.com had booked us into another hotel. Yeah, if you've got to do that yourself and you're turning up on a Saturday night in a town that's busy, you're probably not going to get hotel rooms. And even if you are, you're going to pay through the nose. But by using a broker, all of that becomes somebody else's problem. I said to Sarah, and I don't know whether this is sort of advanced, whether it's something anybody that's listening to this is currently considering, but it is worth touching on without going too deeply into the difference between touring in the UK and touring in Europe. I mean, different parts of the world, you're going to have differences anyway, but in particular, the changes that are ongoing because of Brexit and overseas, it's worth familiarising yourself if you get asked to do a tour and it involves going anywhere in the European Union, Scandinavia, or any of those sort of places, because different rules now apply. You may have to have various paperwork to get you through customs points. That paperwork generally isn't free. It's going to cost you a lot of money up front. And if you don't have it, you will get turned away. It's not a case of, okay, well, we'll let you through this time, everything's fine. You just simply will be turned back. Once you have the paperwork and you may think everything's rosy, you've paid for the customs paperwork to get you there, there are a series of things that have to be done in the correct order. And if you miss one of those, or you're not aware of one of those, the whole process becomes invalidated. You get to a point where somebody will pick up on it and suddenly you've reached roadblock. You need to be aware that to get this paperwork facilitated, for argument's sake, if we do the simplest one, you're going from the UK to play one show in France and coming back. That involves, before you get on your ferry or Eurotunnel, going to a inland facility place where they will stamp your paperwork. That can take anything from 20 minutes to 3 or 4 hours if they're particularly busy. So you need to factor that in, because again, you miss your ferry 9 times out of 10, you've got to pay for another ferry. Eurotunnel, if you go within, I think it's 2 hours grace they give you to try and get you on the next available crossing, you've got to pay again. And if it happens on the day, it can be very expensive. You've got to allow that at any time, customs have a right to inspect everything you've got, which is going to take them 2 or 3 hours. Doesn't happen very often, but when it does, you've got to be prepared for that. You've got to keep this stuff up to date, because if guitarists or drummers are swapping equipment out, one time they're traveling with a Les Paul, the next tour they're traveling with a Gibson. If you reach customs and they open the guitar case and they're looking for a Les Paul and they pull out a Gibson, you could get a fine. You know, you're effectively, in their eyes, you're transporting goods to sell. That anything that isn't on your paperwork, you know, they're looking at you with like you've got intent to fraud on there. Visas coming into the UK, it's not something you should be asked to do as a tour manager, but some people do. So now, since Brexit, any artist that's coming from the European Union or coming from America or anywhere further afield will need a visa. It's actually called a certificate of sponsorship now to come into the UK. So you may be asked to go and pick an American artist up at an airport. You get there and you find that they're not where they should be. And once you've done your investigations, once you phone the artist, you find that they've turned up without these working papers. They're not going to get in the country 9 times out of 10. There are people that come in under the wire. They don't come in traveling guitars. They don't declare that they're there to work, and you know, they'll get through sometimes. There are dedicated government bodies now whose sole job is to trawl social media and websites and look for tour dates and tie up and see whether the correct paperwork has been applied for. And if it hasn't, you know, the whole tour can fall to pieces. So, you know, again, questions to ask the manager or the agent, you know, have you sorted out certificates of sponsorship? As you go along, you'll meet people that will be able to do these for you. It may be something you want to take on yourself, just to, when you get the call from the agent or the manager to say, I've got XYZ band coming in from America, and you can say to them, have you arranged work papers? I've got a guy that will do that. And then you just hand it over to them. You know that it's done then. But it is something that you need to be aware of. I don't know how practical this is going to be, but I was at this point going to test you on how much information you've taken in. I don't know whether that's the right thing to do or not, but to do a trial advance. So I'm going to put you in the position where I'm going to say to you, I've just booked the parish, you're the tour manager. How do you go about advancing the show? Have any hands gone up, Sarah? You're muted again.
No. Oh, hold on. No, I'm afraid not.
Okay, that's fine. Like I say, there's a lot of stuff there.
I do have I have a question, Mick, and that's around paying your tour manager. Is it, you know, are there various ways that can happen? Is it like a percentage of the tour income, or do you have a fee, or does it depend on the tour manager?
It depends on the tour manager. It depends on the management company. It depends on the band. Most tour managers are on a set fee. Some ask for a tour bonus. So, for argument's sake, if a tour does particularly well, and you can be seen to have contributed towards that, it's not unreasonable to ask for a bonus at the end of it. And most management companies, most artists, if they value you and they want you to work with them again, they will do that. Some artists go on a percentage, especially on what I would call budget tours. It's, you know, there's 5 of the band, there's 4 of the band, there's you, everyone's on 20% of what the tour makes. There's no hard and fast rules, but I think you'll find as people get more experience, most tour managers have a minimum that they will go out for, unless it's a band that's come out of retirement and where they're childhood heroes or something like that, or you're being asked to do charity shows, or it's a show that you particularly want to do for your own reason. Then yes, you set your own rates, and there are no real. People will tell you, the average tour manager, the average, what I would call mid-range tour manager, is earning between £250, £350 a night, plus per diems, which is sort of like a daily living expense. You can talk yourself out of a lot of work by sticking to that. My advice on it would be flexible. Early on into the tour, get some sort of idea whether they're playing fair with you. And if they're playing fair with you, a lot of people will be, this is what I can guarantee you. We've made more money tonight than we thought we were going to make. Can I give you some extra money? Or can I, if you're on a tour where, you get breakfast, you normally get an evening meal, but you're not getting anything to get you through the day. Can I give you £20 so you can get yourself a coffee and a meal? So yeah, it's really down to what you negotiate or what you're offered. And sometimes, like everything else, it's best to let them make the offer first, because quite often they're going to offer you more money than you're going to ask for.
Right. Okay. And then the other question, I hope people don't mind it. If you've got any questions, do put your hands up now.
Yeah.
But the other question I was going to ask is how is it still relevant and important to be subsidising your gigs and tours with merchandise from a financial point of view?
It's incredibly important. 20 years ago, we used to have a saying that, the tour would be to support an album. So in other words, you would go out knowing that the tour was going to break even, or maybe even lose a little bit of money, because you were going to make a huge amount of money on album sales. Nowadays, it's the other way around. It's because of streaming, which, you know, that's a completely different debate. But album sales are generally down, CD sales are down. So you will find that a lot of tours rely on merchandise to break even. And that's a science in itself. It's another one that's not an exact science. You can overload on merchandise and find that you're stuck with some. So where on paper you've made a healthy profit by selling your merchandise, when it's literally that you're on a 30 or 40% markup on each t-shirt, you've actually lost money because you've pre-bought too many. Most of us, and anybody that tells you they haven't, I'm going to just call an outright liar, have cellars or lofts with t-shirts from 10 years ago or whatever. So yeah, it's a very, very important part of the thing. And you know, we just had a band who I was talking to the agent the other day. They just played a major festival in Sweden. And I said to him, how did they do merchandise wise? And he just said, let's draw a veil over that. And I said, what? And he said, well, they didn't take anything because they didn't want to pay for an extra suitcase. You know,
Wow.
yeah, it is a wow. It's one of those, yeah, just absolutely gobsmacked. But again, you know, you've got to be have your eyes open, and you can lug a suitcase around the whole tour and not sell anything. You know, if it's not the right thing or it's a design that people don't particularly like. But yeah, merchandise is make or break. And another thing a lot of tour managers do, especially on budget tours, make them aware that you're prepared to sell the merchandise for a percentage. You know, you can make more money selling merchandise than you can from your tour manager fee. If you get a good night, if you know, you get the drunk guy who's trying to impress his girlfriend, especially in these days of credit cards. And, you know, if you had a credit card machine, I'd buy one of everything on the table. Well, guess what, mate? There's the credit card machine. And you can, you can, I mean, it's happened, and you can make a lot of money on it. So, yeah, it's another string to your bow. You know, it's another thing that doesn't really fall under the umbrella of tour managers, but you'd be surprised how many tour managers do that.
And anyone else got a question? Because I'm going to just chip in here now.
Chip in, chip away.
Insofar as if you had the opportunity and you got offered a few gigs out in Europe, is there any advantage in making networks and getting backlines sorted in the countries that you're going to? And in the same case, with merchandise being suggested on t-shirt companies, say in Germany or France, or so that you're not lugging that suitcase over and you haven't got another piece of, you know, equipment or suitcase full of t-shirts that you have to have a piece of paper for that needs stamping.
Yeah, I mean, the quick answer is yes. And there are a lot of British companies now that have bases out in Europe. It's not always as simple as that. I mean, a lot of musicians have a particular sound that they attribute to a particular amp or a particular setup, and you may not be able to replicate that. So you got to be careful. It's a question of comfort zones versus profit margin. Merchandise wise, yeah, absolutely. The only thing I would say, I mean, we do it. We have a t-shirt supplier in France, and generally speaking, I don't want to be too hypocritical because we do tend to take stuff over, but generally speaking, the only issue is that it's cheaper to manufacture in the UK than it is in France. So it's a swings and roundabouts thing.
Right.
You certainly don't have to do the merchandise dance, but if you order 100 shirts in France and you sell 50 of them, you've still got the dilemma of bringing them back, declaring them then. But yes, it's always worth asking. I think all of these things that you're asking, that they're all about, it all comes back to doing your advancing. to being able to go to the manager and say, if we take 100 t-shirts from the UK, we can get them done for a £5 a shirt, but we're going to have to pay tax on them. If we get them in France, they're going to be £7 a shirt, but we don't have to pay any tax. And then it's, well, work out what tax you're gonna have to pay, and make an informed decision on that.
Right, cool. Anna's asked, how do you stay calm under pressure when things go wrong and you have to sort things out, and calm the band down as well?
It's one of those skills you've either got or you haven't. It's not something that you're going to learn or pick up. Some of the best tour managers I've worked with are very volatile, and it works for them. I don't ever break sweat because there's no point. You've got a situation that you've got to find a solution for. And I think when I was talking to you yesterday, Sarah, I was making the point. You also have to accept that some things don't have solutions. We've missed a ferry once since 1985 only. We missed a ferry to get back from Dublin to Liverpool, where we had a sold-out show. We arrived literally 30 seconds after the ferry went. We saw it go. We realised as soon as we took the wrong turning in Dublin that there was a chance that was going to happen. Went straight to the ferry office, found out that was the only ferry of the day. Even went down the route of trying to book cheap flights. They were all fully booked. Phoned the promoter at the venue, who just laughed and said, "Do you think you're the only band that's ever missed a gig? You've done everything within your power to get there. We're just going to have to reschedule. Take the boys down the pub, come back on the ferry tomorrow." It's one of those things. You'll have situations like that. We've had on 2 or 3 occasions where we filled up petrol engines with diesel. You're stuck. You can't go anywhere. You've got to wait for them to come and pump you out. Could be an hour, could be 4 hours. You do the right thing. You make the promoter aware. 9 times out of 10, you won't be the only person that's phoned them, that week or that month with the problem. Once your reputation is that you're good and you take care of things, people will understand that things are going to fall out the sky that you can't control. As to Anna's direct question about remaining calm, it's just you won't, generally speaking, get anywhere if you're being confrontational with anybody. If you're being confrontational with a promoter, they are within their rights to cancel a show on you, be it sold out or whatever. That's not going to get you anywhere. If you're confrontational with a band or you lose your temper with a band, expect to get replaced halfway through a tour. You effectively, although you're self-employed, you are working for these people. They are your bosses. And if you're going to have stand-up slanging matches, and sometimes it's unavoidable, sometimes you do have to have what I would call a quiet word with somebody, take them to one side, but it should always be within a controlled, I was going to use the word template, a controlled setting. Never ever, if somebody is having a go at you, occasionally, bands will form into a gang, and you'll find that they don't like something you've done. They've already had a conversation, and they will gang up on you. And it's one of those. I mean, if you're in the wrong, put your hands up and say you're in the wrong. If you don't feel you're in the wrong, just explain to them that nothing's going to be gained by having a you facing the world conversation, and ask to speak to them individually. A lot of the time you will find that that'll make the problem diminish or go away. You'll be out on a tour, maybe on a 2 or 3 week tour, and after week 1 it will become very obvious to you that you're not getting on with the band and the band are not getting on with you. You're stuck with it for another week. It's the same way as going into any other job and working for a boss that you don't like. You have to manage the situations in exactly the same way.
Great. Okay. Anyone else got any questions? Okay. Yes, Adrian.
Hi, it's actually Lisa.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi. Adrian and I are a duo, so we're not a band, although we like to think of ourselves as a band, and probably, you know, nowhere near the stage yet of thinking about a tour. So I guess if we took one step back from that, Mick, for people in our position, and I'm guessing there might be other people on the call who are in a similar position. How do you even go about thinking about a tour, starting a tour? Where do you start with it all, would you say?
I would say, I mean, you know, presumably you're playing local gigs.
We're doing a variety of local gigs, yeah, but mainly sort of pubs. We're doing some residential homes, you know, but we absolutely want to grow and develop that.
Sure. So you start talking to other people in the venues that you go into, be that, you know, if you're doing a show where there's other artists on, you know, talk to them. How are you getting your gigs? You know, do you have an agent? I mean, if it's like anything, if you come across another duo or another band or singer-songwriter that has an agent that they think is particularly good, they'll tell you about that. You know, a lot of the time it will be a case of, let me tell my agent that you're going to be giving them a ring or an email in a couple of days' time. Even if they don't do that, even if it's a case of you're playing a hotel on a Friday night and there's another artist there, or a hotel manager, it's like, well, you know, the act that you had in last week, where else are they playing? You know, be prepared to email those places and say, we're on the same circuit as the other artist. Would you be interested in looking at a show? You know, it's a lot easier when you've got an agent, because obviously they've all got relationships with the venue, and they will, once you reach that point, they will automatically know that this particular venue suits you, or it ticks the boxes that you particularly require. But in the meantime, get yourself known, get yourself seen, you know, get yourself a reputation that people like what you do, and you will be surprised. People will start coming up to you at shows and saying, oh, you know, I'm staying with my sister today. I live in Liverpool and there's a great venue that I think you'd go down well, and get the contact details. Don't be afraid to phone up. Don't be afraid to email, and don't be afraid to be rejected. You know, you're going to get rejected. But you know, it's a numbers game. If you phone 10 venues and you get 2 shows out of it, they're 2 shows you didn't have before.
Great, thank you. That's really helpful.
No problem.
Stephen, I'll read your question in just a sec. Something that again has occurred to me. Where's a good place to find booking agents? Is there a directory or?
There is. There's the Agents Association of Great Britain is a good place to start. And they will give you a list of agents, but also they'll tell you what they specialize in. So for argument's sake, if you're a magician, it's, you know, it's no good looking for venues that are looking for a 4-piece rock band. And it's good, you can see who the agents are, you know, other artists that they're currently booking. The only thing I would say with that as well is, you know, and this isn't meant to be condescending, but if you see an agent on there and they're booking AC/DC and Coldplay and the Foo Fighters, and you're playing to 50 people in a pub, the chances are you'll get a polite, no, sorry, you know, it's not for us. But yeah, have a look. If you've got an agent that specializes, like Lisa was just saying, you know, they're a duo that specializes in duos, you know, you never know. He may have just lost the duo. Somebody may have stopped working, may have split up. It's worth sending an email, and bear in mind that all of us, I mean, I've been an agent for the same time as I've been a tour manager, and all of us, you know, we're looking for the next one, because people retire, you know, people just go on to do other things or whatever. So we're always actually looking for talent, and most of the agents on the Agents Association will actually hear you out. They'll, you know, accept a demo or a YouTube video or whatever, and it may just be what they're looking for.
Okay, brilliant. All right, Stephen's asked, who employs your services to manage a tour, and when in the planning of the tour are you brought in? Are dates and venues already decided, or are you employed at the initial stage of going on tour?
Right. So depending on how big the act is, it will generally be that the dates are already booked. An agent will have booked them, management company will be involved, and you will then be contacted by the management agent, or maybe a musician that you've worked with in the past or whatever. And it's at that point, when the tour is already booked, that you will be brought in and asked to take it forward from there. Once you've done maybe a couple of tours with a particular artist, they may ask you to get involved. They may ask you to have your input, but unless you are an agent, that input will be sort of the band really enjoyed this particular show last time, so can you make sure it's there? You may have insider knowledge that the agent doesn't have. Don't phone Huddersfield Parish for a Wednesday night because they only book Friday or Saturdays. So you can be asked to be involved in that, and everything, everything goes back to the importance of being part of a team on this. And even if that's when you first start, or you are a singer-songwriter, it's you and maybe your partner to lean on or something. It's still a team, and as you grow, the team becomes more, and you can outsource more, or you might not want to. You might want to continue doing it yourself, but yeah, generally speaking, everything will be booked before you become involved, because that's their particular skill. It's not necessarily your skill. Your skill is being given the tour and making the tour successful.
Brilliant, thanks, Mick. Spencer, did you want to ask a question? Because your hand went up and then it went down again.
No, I was going to, and then it wasn't relevant, I don't think. Okay. It's all right.
All right. Okay. We've actually hit Anna's, sorry, just before that, Anna.
Hey, Anna.
Anna, you can talk in real life if you want. Yeah, she says, before we end the call, can I ask a general music question? Yes, please, Anna. Do you want to come off mute and ask us in real life? Oh, you're crap at Teams.
Oh, hiya.
Hey, Anna.
Yeah, can you hear me? Hello,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Well, I've just got a bit of a blag, actually, and it's okay if it's nothing you can help me with, either of you, but me and my friend are doing a music-related charity raffle this Sunday, actually, and it's like he's very well connected, but we're still not getting very many bids in, and it's like really quite niche and rare items. Like we've got like really like rare vinyl records, we've got like a model New York subway train, and I just wondered if you have any music contacts that you might and you might want to help me promote it. Basically, it's a bit of a cheeky blag, and it's
Sarah's got my email address. If you want to email me the details, and I'll share it on the Facebook.
Oh, yes. Thank you. That would be so lovely.
Yep.
All right, Anna, and I'll do the same. I'll do the same with my mailing list, because there could be people on there that might be interested.
Sorry, say that again.
I said, yeah, I'll sort that. I'll send you Mick's email, and yeah, and we'll take it from there.
Thank you.
And
amazing. Thank you so much.
That goes as a general thing. I mean, if you walk away from there tomorrow, I wish I'd asked that question. Yeah, just email Sarah. She'll pass it on to me. I'll come back to you and give you a reply.
Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, brilliant. Because yeah, there's always that when you walk out of a room or a seminar, and it's like, oh, why didn't I ask that?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I say, more than happy to do that. So.
Okay, brilliant. All right, thanks very much, Mick. Yeah, guys, all right, we're at 35 minutes. If there are definitely no more questions, we'll say thank you to Mick for his time and his wonderful insight into tour management. And I want to thank all of you for attending. And I hope you've enjoyed it and found it really useful.
That was really good. Yeah, thank you, Mick.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. I mean, it's actually been a pleasure. I said to Sarah yesterday, I didn't know whether we get to 90 minutes. We did, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. Comfortably so. All right, everyone. Look, I wish you good night. And yeah, in the chat, someone's come up with thank you. Another thank you there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hold on. I'll open chat up just so we can see. Yeah, thanks, Mick. I think I need to reconsider choices and get into tour management.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Mick. Thanks. Brilliant. Thanks. Yeah, loads of thanks coming through.
Yeah.
Very useful. Thank you. Yeah. All right. Okay.
Thank you.
All right then, everybody. See you on the 25th.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Cheers. Thank you. Take
Bye.
care. Bye.
Bye. Great. Okay. That was excellent. Absolutely excellent. Yeah. Went really well. And
But like
yeah.
I say, seriously, if you're doing some more of these, Carol's local, and she's an ex-school teacher as well. She's